Hello and welcome everybody to a brand new episode of r/ProRevenge. My name is Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top stories. Before I do, however, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button, as well as make sure you got notifications turned on, that way you could stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. Our first story is from Ethan Ralph is Fat, and it's called Take My Tips and Pay Me Below Minimum Wage. See what happens. I apologize in advance for the walls of text, but this has layers. So this happened years ago when I was still in college. I worked for a delivery joint. The company seemed super cool because they provided vehicles instead of forcing you to beat down your own car. Huge perk, right? Well, in this case, no. The owner of the company used this as justification to take a percentage of the driver's tips. Often, this would result in an employee making below minimum wage. If you made below minimum wage, you would have to come and pick up your check in person and sign a document attesting that you did make minimum wage due to undocumented cash tips, or some such nonsense. Now, this was a problem for two reasons. Number one, in the state I was in, employee tips belonged to the employee unless part of an employee tip pooling agreement. This was plain as day on the Department of Labor website, so that 20% gouge was already crossing a line. Number two, you cannot just hand wave or force employees to say they made above minimum wage. So that's some pretty shady stuff, am I right? Now most people would see this situation and just run for the hills, which probably explained the delivery driver turnover being so high. But I, on the other hand, saw the potential. See, I'm pretty well versed in labor law and decided that I was going to ride it out. I wanted to see how long they would keep it up. Here and there, I would make comments to the managers about the legality of their practices, and it was often told, "Our lawyers said it was okay, so it's okay." I would love to meet these lawyers one day, so I patiently waited for a year, documenting every red cent they took from me and encouraging the other drivers to do so. Every new driver that came through that door got a little powwow with me, and I would give them the skinny. Unfortunately, my plan must have leaked because sooner rather than later, the joint decided to fire me after making up 3 bogus infractions. If you're interested in those, ask and I'll explain in an edit. This wasn't a problem though, as my plan was already in action. See, in this state, unpaid wages collect interest. So what was $20 to $40 a night, 5 nights a week, over 1 year, quickly became a decent sum. I began collecting the names of current and previous employees whom had been screwed over by the company and collected their documented data, then sent it off to the Department of Labor. At the end of the day, it took a couple of months, but the company was eventually required to pay a decent chunk of change to all parties and a pretty hefty fine on top. Overall, I believe it came out to a little under $100,000. I wasn't done though. See those shady little documents they had us sign claiming we made over minimum wage affected how the company was reporting its payroll tax. The IRS eventually came in and hit them for a ton of back taxes, and I received a small portion of the settlement, as the IRS used to pay people who tipped them off. I have no idea if they still do though. Finally, I was increasingly aware of the company's under-the-table agreement with their health inspector, to which I decided to go ahead and tip off the health department. This resulted in even more fines and a temporary closure of the joint. Altogether, it ended up costing this dumb little delivery joint a ton of money just to stay open, all because they wanted 20% of the driver's tips. Moral here is, know your labor laws. It's degenerates like these whom profit off the ignorance or fear of a workforce. The more you know about your rights, the less these idiots will be able to survive in the wild. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Edit. I did not expect this to blow up. To address a few things, the infractions that led to my termination and their BS nature are down in the comments. Hopefully they're not buried. I also wanted to address something I saw in the comments quite a bit. If you're in a situation that doesn't seem right, document everything. Keep a little black notebook and write down everything. The most important thing you can do to protect yourself from nonsense in the workplace is to document. If you're ever in question of something, be it disability rights at work or earnings, you can always contact your state EEOC branch or DOL branch. They'll gladly help you figure out what is and isn't proper. Don't be a person who gets taken advantage of by bad employers. Only by fighting back will they ever learn their lesson. Thanks again for all the questions, and thanks to you fine folks who found this worthy of an award. I probably won't edit again because of the rules of the subreddit saying not to make a lot of edits. If there's a reason for a big one, though, I'll go ahead and make one. Our next story is by Interesting Spite 8260, and it's called All She Had to Do Was Nothing. Context: names and some details changed for privacy. I'm on mobile, etc. Time to lay out the players in this game. We got me, 31, but I'm not out at work. Manager, Lady Catherine, in her 60s. Managing partner, Bennett, 50s maybe. Then we got my partner, Gardner, 47. And partner I'm babysitting, 44, goes by the name Bingley. And lastly, my friend/coworker, Charlotte, in her 30s. I am a professional attorney wrangler for a big legal firm. If you've watched Suits, I'm Donna if she was wound tighter than a child's music box. As a legal admin, I have to keep a tremendous amount of information straight. Every company in every U.S. state has their own court system, their own rules, and their own idiosyncrasies. I have 5 attorneys on my team. Despite the TV shows, it's pretty unusual for a lawyer to have a special secretary all to their own unless they're very important. So 5 is a solid number. Because of the nameless death that took over the world last year, a secretary that left in January 2020 has not been replaced yet, and I've been babysitting one of the partners, Bingley, in the meantime. It's been a fun learning opportunity, as Bingley works for an entirely different region and type of law than the rest of my team, and also he has a case where a truck exploded, which is awesome. Also, the truck was empty. Story! My manager, Lady Catherine, is the worst. Know the type. She plays favorites. Her best loved word is no. She must be involved in every conversation because she's just that important and necessary. We don't get along because I'm a stubborn know-it-all who's been proven right a few too many times. Highlights include forbidding me from using the same resources other admins have access to, on her orders, including backup admins, when my workload was too big, and then denying my overtime requests. I literally had no way to do my job some days. It's worth noting that the reason Bingley's secretary left was specifically because Lady Catherine. In fact, 4 additional admins quit over the year explicitly because of her. Anyway, at this point, I'd been working with Bingley for almost a year. It was November 2020, and we'd settled into a pretty good routine. I'd gotten used to filing pleadings in a different state, and no longer needed to double-check all my work for nuance. Because law still operates in the Stone Ages, a few U.S. states still require hard copy filing. Anything we want the judge to read has to be sent by actual mail, on actual paper, to arrive to the judges in actual hands. It's a pain. Most states let you just file electronically, but whatever. Bingley mostly only has cases on one of the hard copy states. Lady Catherine, in her excessive wisdom, butted in uninvited and instructed me to include a cover letter when mailing a new filing. This confused me, as I had been filing for almost a year, and no one, including the admin who originally trained me, had mentioned a cover letter. I told her this, and she basically told me to suck it up. I called the court admin to make sure I wasn't crazy and that I hadn't ruined a year's worth of filings. The court admin literally laughed and said to please not include a cover letter, so I didn't. Imagine my surprise when Lady Catherine called me, writing me up for insubordination. Even knowing the court rules and the judge, and the court admin explicitly said not to send a damn letter, she was right because she was always right, and I am, as I quote, a disrespectful little shit, and she was tired of me. A warning went into my employee file, pending disciplinary measures. The next day, she emailed my team telling them to reduce my score on my yearly review, as she knew I had been rated too highly for what my abilities really are. It felt to me like she was preparing to fire me by creating a history of poor performance. Well, if you're so tired of me, Madam Manager, I can leave. Within a week of looking, I found a new position. Now here's the issue, though. I love my team. This is the best work team I've ever been on. We take each other seriously and genuinely love each other. A lot of times, admins get pushed around because we don't have fancy degrees, but not here. Calling in to quit, I cried. I cried a lot. I cried to the point that one of the partners, Bennett, asked if I wanted a counteroffer. I said no because that wouldn't solve anything. He asked what I meant. I told him about the write-up. Told him about how she was trying to falsify my employee review after it had already been submitted. I told him the reason 5 admins left. I told him about how I wasn't allowed to ask for help. At this point, I had given myself hiccups from weeping, and one of the partners on my team, Gardner, was calling him asking if he and his workload were the reasons I was leaving. So Bennett let me go do other things, like day drink and create a shrine out of legal forms. I thought it was the end of it, until a friend in another office, Charlotte, called me in asking what the fuck I was doing. She doesn't have the time to train someone into being the new me, and I was the only admin she trusts in my office, so why was I leaving her all alone? I told her, and she told Gardner, and together they plotted. First, Charlotte's the manager in her office, so she's on equal footing with Lady Catherine. They also report to the same person. Charlotte called the district manager and told him that Lady Catherine was driving admins away and that the most recent quitter, me, was the only person who knows how to do a lot of the work on my teams, and my loss was a serious blow. Apparently this is true, which is both heartwarming and terrifying. Meanwhile, Gardner called up a fellow partner and told her his world would collapse in on itself if I left. He would go to the nearest bridge and jump off of it, which would be pretty impressive in a landlocked state. They had to do something. I got a call the next day from Bennett saying they had a counteroffer they were really hoping I'd take. Basically, instead of Lady Catherine, I would report directly to Gardner. Lady Catherine would be forbidden from interacting with me without first asking Gardner for his permission. This solved the issue, and I got to stay with my team, so I happily accepted. I thought the debacle was over. But the debacle was not over. Unbeknownst to me, after looking at the evidence, exit interviews, emails, memos, Bennett put Lady Catherine on a performance improvement plan, and she did not get an end-of-year bonus or a raise. Turns out I had been absolutely correct. Lady Catherine's behavior and treatment had been the explicit cause that 6 secretaries quit in less than a year. I got a call last week from Charlotte. I figured she wanted to gossip about coworkers or rant about how a shared client is a big ol' headache, but it was actually to give me a heads up. Lady Catherine had been stripped of her management duties. I no longer had any contact with her, which was great, but it also meant I didn't see that her behavior had actually doubled down on the admins, unfortunate enough to still be under her thumb. She missed every single one of the benchmarks on her performance improvement plan. Charlotte was actually asking me my opinion on who should be the new manager, as I know everyone, and she was helping cover some things as an outside manager. Now I know some of you are thinking, yes, become the manager and fire Lady Catherine, but I'm not a sadist. I want to stay on my team and do what I do best, which is being a cheerfully annoying, respectful little shit. I told her one of the more serious senior admins would probably need some guidance, but would be amazing at it. No one has to deal with Lady Catherine anymore. She's now a mere paralegal and not anyone's manager at all. If she had just left me alone and not interfered where she wasn't needed, none of this would have happened. All she had to do was nothing. TLDR, I quit a job I otherwise adore to escape a toxic manager. Coworkers reorganized the chain of command to get me to stay, and manager ended up demoted. Now for a little FAQ. Why wasn't Lady Catherine fired? I have no idea. My best guess is she's really great at another part of her job, or has a valuable qualification. That, or she's extorting someone. I will absolutely update if I find out for certain. There are bridges in landlocked states. It's just a silly throwaway joke, but I'm from the San Francisco area originally. When I say bridge, I think Golden Gate, which does go over the ocean. I'm new to the middle part of the US and still learning your weird claustrophobic topography. Where are Bennett's managerial skills here? Look, I picked Bennett as his name for a reason. He's a great dude, super smart and funny, but tends to ignore problems instead of solving them. How many secretaries quit? Do you know how numbers work? I absolutely do not. Thank you for asking. My math does check out here though. 4 nameless secretaries, plus Bingley's former secretary, plus me. I stayed, but I also quit. I'm a conundrum. 6 pissed off admins. Ah, ha ha ha. Bennett, if you're reading this, this is why I turned down the accounting duties. So, who actually got revenge here? Charlotte, in my opinion. I wasn't sure what Reddit to post this to, but ProRevenge is my favorite, so I tried it out. I briefly chatted with a mod who agrees, so here it is. Pride and Prejudice. Austen was a genius, and you can't convince me otherwise.